I get to introduce Marguerite Adelman, who is going to take us towards our Earth Democracy Issue Committee time. So Marguerite is a Vermont resident. She's a retired nonprofit administrator, a social service government, served on the WILF U.S. Development Committee, and has been a part of the Earth Democracy team for a bit, leading the way, actually making progress in PFAS, which is important. I know I was getting ready to highlight her so we can find her. There we go. There we go. There we go. And are you already highlighted? There we go. And I will say thank you. Thanks. And Pat Elder is obviously also here. Let's see, yeah. I'll let you introduce yourself. Go ahead, take it away, Marguerite.
Okay, I am so pleased to be here. Can everyone see the screen? I'll make it larger.
We can see the screen.
Wonderful. Today I want to talk specifically about the cost of PFAS. What is PFAS actually costing us? And as Tina introduced me, I am with the Vermont PFAS Military Poisons Coalition. We've been working for about 5 years now on the issue of PFAS and focusing specifically on education, which is so important for this complex topic, as well as advocacy and legislation. I want to give a brief introduction to PFAS. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these first slides, but PFAS is per and polyfluoral alkali substances, or much shorter name, PFAS. It was discovered during the Manhattan Project, and it's a class of 15,000 man-made toxic chemicals that are used in more products than you can even begin to imagine. PFAS are bioaccumulative in living things. In other words, they just keep adding on. You can't get rid of them. And they travel through air, water, and soil. And because they last so long and they're so almost impossible to destroy, they're named forever chemicals. I'm going to go on to the next slide because this is the one that is really what's raised the concern about PFAS. It is toxic, it's an endocrine disruptor, and it's been connected to all forms of cancer, thyroid disease, colitis, cholesterol, hypertension, weakened immune systems, which is why or health issues in men and women, learning and developmental issues in children, and more. The link at the bottom of this page actually takes you to one of the first databases that links PFAS and various forms of PFAS to various studies and diseases. So what products contain PFAS? Well, like I said, it's a plethora, a myriad of products. If you see the words non-stick, water resistant, stain resistant, grease resistant, or long lasting on a product, you can easily suspect that it probably has PFAS in it. And that can go from everything from personal care products, contact lenses, dental floss, toilet paper, female hygiene products, to your foods, your cleaning products, household consumer products, rugs, paints, mattresses, cookware, water, and even pharmaceuticals and medical devices. So PFAS is rampant in our society, and that's despite the fact that we've known of, well, we haven't, but the chemical industries that created it, 3M, DuPont, et cetera, have known of the dangers of PFAS for decades. So where can you find PFAS if you want to know if it's in your area? I wanted to list this tool for you because I think it's probably going to be the master tool for doing research on PFAS. And it was actually developed as part of the Biden administration's PFAS strategic roadmap. And the Biden administration has actually taken a deep interest in PFAS and moving forward much more rapidly than in the past, and getting legislation out there on water, for example. You've probably been reading about that. This particular guide, when you go to it, is complex to use, but will give you a really good sense of PFAS in your area. So what I want to focus on is the cost of PFAS. And I got interested in this because I learned about Global Foundries, which is a semiconductor facility plant here in Essex Junction, Vermont. Previously, IBM was there. So I started doing some research because I got upset about some of the things that I read. And I want to start on the left-hand side because I think this is important. PFAS is cheap, relatively cheap to buy. It only costs $50 to $1,000 per pound, depending on the type of PFAS you're buying. But note the second thing. It costs between 2.7 million to 18 million per pound to remove PFAS from municipal wastewater. And once again, you're not destroying it. You're removing it, but then you're just moving it somewhere else, like to a landfill or wherever. So I decided to look just at one of the multitude of industries that use PFAS. And I chose semiconductors for a lot of reasons, mostly because of Global Foundries. And, you know, I found that PFAS is used in so many applications. And that Biden, when he did his CHIPS and Science Act, directed that all this federal money, $280 billion over 10 years, go to, you know, compete against China in making semiconductors so that we don't have to get them from overseas. And that money obviously is going to go to semiconductor plants, and $25,000 investment in tax credit so they don't have to pay taxes. So the irony is that the semiconductor industry has a really poor track record on lots of things. So I looked at Global Foundries, and it received $125 million in federal funding. And this is recently, just in the last year and a half, 4.5 million in state funding, and from the Department of Defense, and here you get your military connection, a multi-year contract for 3.1 billion. When I looked at the PFAS analytical tools for Global Foundries, you can look it up there, I found out about the air emissions. And they have a huge amount of air emissions. But what really interested me, because I could do a comparison, was their EPA permit for releasing PFAS into the Winooski River, which flows into Lake Champlain, and Lake Champlain flows up to Canada because it's an international lake. So the discharges have increased from in 2021, oh, sorry, my thing is over this, 218 pounds in 2021 to 486 pounds in 2023, which means that to remediate that would cost Vermonters $6.2 million just to clean up the waste for 1 year. And that pretty much exceeds what we're giving in grants and contracts, which for me is frightening. But that's not the only cost that we should be talking about when we talk about PFAS. We should also be looking at the costs for health. And because PFAS is toxic at such low levels, it causes birth defects and chronic diseases. The toxicity studies are showing that virtually every type of those 15,000 types of PFAS that were examined can be correlated to these horrible health outcomes. Cancer rates and infertility are increasing across the country, especially in women. And the Center for Disease Control is now recommending that people discuss getting PFAS blood tests with their doctors. which of course are not covered by insurance. And a recent analysis of the impacts of PFAS exposure on annual direct healthcare expenses just for the United States is 37 to 59 billion annually. And these are costs that are not paid by the polluter. They're paid by us and by our healthcare companies. And finally, a really sad thing is that there's emerging evidence that PFAS exposure confers heritable effects on later generations. So even men and women having children, it's in the eggs and in the sperm, will then send those bad effects on to the next generations. And what about water, soil, and air costs? Removing PFAS from water could cost us 3.2 to 7 billion annually. And these are costs that are probably going to end up, if you listen to Mary Grant from Food and Water Watch, end up being paid by community members. You know, there are going to be substantial increases in our costs to get clean water without PFAS in it. PFAS in our soil is ruining farms and farmers, and the cost to remove PFAS from soil is out of reach of most of us and home farmers. Texas and Maine are experiencing horrible situations with PFAS. PFAS in our air, indoor air contains a lot of PFAS because of all the products in our home that have PFAS. And the annual emissions from F-gases, which are a form of PFAS, account for 63% of all PFAS pollution each year. We have PFAS in our food, fish and shellfish, which Pat Elder will talk about in a few minutes, and everything else you can see there. And the global cost of removing PFAS is going to exceed the global GDP. So there is absolutely no way we can remediate or take PFAS out of everything that it's in. Oh, sorry, I got to go back one. Oh, something.
Looks like she froze. Would it be possible to hear from Pat Elder while we're waiting?
Pat could also answer questions in the chat or
That's, yeah,
recommend hands.
right. So there is a question in the chat, Pat, about buying PFAS not free nonstick pans. Am I being fooled? Is that a question that you can answer?
No, you're not being fooled. Some states have enacted legislation to label cookware, and that's definitely a good place to start. But oftentimes they'll have labeling that'll say no PFOS, no PFOA, but they still will put PFAS chemicals that are not those two. But you've got to be mindful that almost all of the PFAS in our bodies is from the food we eat. It's not from lipstick or cosmetics or frying pans or any of that stuff. It's the food, especially the fish.
So the food and the fish.
So it's in
That's
the
it.
fish because it's in the water, or how does
Yeah,
it?
that's right. I mean, the biggest problem is that industrial and residential uses of water go to wastewater treatment plants, and these wastewater treatment plants don't treat PFAS, and so the PFAS either winds up in the sludge, which is slathered on agricultural fields, or the PFAS winds up in rivers, and so the banks and the sediment of the rivers are contaminated, and of course the fish and the wildlife are too. And so it's the beef and it's the chicken and it's the crops that are grown on those fields that are contaminated.
Well, thank you.
You
Nancy?
can buy PFAS free products, and especially dental floss. You need to look for PFAS free dental floss, since people use so much of it. Be sure you do find that.
Thanks, Nancy. It's okay with you if we just move into Pat's presentation? Does that sound all right?
Sure, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it
Okay.
simple enough for me to just click the green share button there?
Ready to
All
go.
right, let's see if I can do it. Oh, this gives me great trepidation, you know.
Great power, Pat. Great power.
Yeah. Are we there yet?
We are there.
There you
Okay,
are.
cool. I appreciate that.
If
Well,
you
It's
want
not
to,
in,
I want to thank Wilf, and especially I want to thank Nancy Price and Marguerite Adelman, because they've been such wonderful women to me. And you know, we've worked on this project for quite some years now. So thank you for that. But let me run. I mean, I get 12, 13 minutes here. So
If you
actually,
want it
I'm
in
not,
slideshow mode, you have to click on that.
what do I have to click on?
Go under slideshow and then start
right
here.
at the top, right at the
Okay, audio, video,
little,
Right. Right there.
where?
yeah, right there. There you go.
Audio?
No,
Slideshow.
slideshow. Slide,
Slideshow. I
and
don't
that'll make
see.
it bigger for us.
It's in a very top bar in black where your cursor is pointed,
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was kind of covered. Can you see it now?
We got to click it.
I did. Okay, there we go.
Huh.
Is it working?
Now say from the beginning on the far left.
Yeah, you don't want to give the better presentations now, so you want to click not
From
now.
beginning. How about that?
Perfect.
Yay!
Rock and roll, you guys. Okay, so let me see if I can move this bar at the top. How do we get that out of there?
Should be able to put your cursor on it and move it around a little.
There we go. Okay, thanks. So part of my discussion here will be on PFAS, but the other will be on Agent Orange. I have found myself in the middle of this Agent Orange controversy. It just doesn't go away. But the DoD steers the conversation on PFAS to firefighting foams and drinking water. And they do this because there is just a tremendous amount of liability. My God, it is in the tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. And so if they could conveniently try to fool the American people into thinking that it's about drinking water and it's about firefighting foams, well, then that's just great. But it's much, much more complicated than that. The military uses PFAS in hundreds and hundreds of different applications and products, and all that stuff gets thrown out. And that's part of the problem. And of course, they're poisoning our air and our food and our water. And the DoD and the VA claim, and this is the second part of my conversation, that only a couple bases have used Agent Orange, and but the dioxin in the Agent Orange sticks around. It's kind of like, you know, the forever chemicals, forever almost. So here is what GAO and the United States government and the United States military would like you to believe, which is, you know, you talk about PFAS, you talk about wastewater treatment plants, and you talk about firefighting foams, and you talk about drinking water, basically. Okay. But the military published a document back in 2023, which you know, they're starting to get worried, you know, because individual states are starting to pass all these regulations, and so they identified hundreds of products that contain PFAS, and they said, "Look, it's a matter of national security, man. We got to keep using this stuff." So, you know, things like oh man, air conditioner cooling or semiconductors or adhesives, tape, you name it. The problem is when you use this stuff, you can't dispose of it. It just doesn't go away. And so you know, it's poisoning all of us, the soil, sediment, the groundwater. It's horrendous. And just to give you an idea here, you know, you see the different pictures of, this is tape, for instance, it's made of Teflon, and different sprays and different adhesives that they use. And they say they have to, because again, it's a matter of national security. So when we hear the controversy about the military and we hear about the use of PFAS, we usually hear it in terms of the foams that they use in firefighting. But for the most part, we've been successful in getting them to stop that, during practice, and that's where most of it was used. They're still holding on to it for the most part, in emergency cases. So the military uses and dumps PFAS in lots and lots of different ways. And, it's just something people don't seem to know. But chrome plating, for instance, when they take pieces of metal and you dip them in chromium-6, they use PFAS in the chrome baths in order to stop the aerosol from the hexavalent 6 from poisoning people. But at the end of the day, they pull the plug and they drain the stuff into the wastewater treatment plants, which of course don't treat it. So you've got wash racks, and you get sewer drains and landfills and leachate, which is the stuff underneath of a dump. So when you have municipal landfills, military landfills, it's kind of like a giant coffee maker, so the stuff at the bottom leaches, it turns into liquid, and that it typically just drains into groundwater or into surface water. Sometimes it's pumped to wastewater treatment plants, but the result is the same. So lots of things, air dust and pollution and sludge beds, and my God, they incinerate the stuff, but most commercial and military incinerators don't get hot enough. I mean, it's firefighting foam. But this is the battle as I see it. Okay, so I fought the state of Maryland for 5 years. Finally got them to, test the waters coming out of Joint Base Andrews. So I tested the waters at Piscataway Creek and found 3,000 parts per trillion, pretty much, in the water there. And so I know, that that stuff will bioaccumulate in fish. And so finally, the state of Maryland came behind me, and they found pretty much the same levels. So, but to underscore the point here, I tested water in an apartment building really close and just found 2 parts per trillion for 55 compounds. So you've got 3,000 parts per trillion for 25 compounds in the Piscataway Creek, but 2 parts per trillion total PFAS for 55 compounds in the drinking water. That's the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, WSSC. They're on the ball. They know what they're doing. And that's pretty much the deal across the country. Municipal water providers are on it. And that's why the Biden administration was able to say, okay, we're going to make it mandatory now, 4 parts per trillion. Well, for just 2 types of PFAS. I'll get into that. But anyway, it's about the food. And, the PFAS bioaccumulates in the fish. And it's just fantastically complex. Different fish are at different levels in the water, and different species of fish attract different types of PFAS. But anyway, here in Maryland, just 8 miles south of Washington, D.C., a largemouth bass was tested by the state of Maryland and was found to contain 94,200 parts per trillion of PFOS. Well, you're not supposed to drink the water under 4, over 4, but it's okay to eat this fish. And that's only one contaminant now. We don't know about the PFHXS or the PFOA or the PFEPA or whatever it might be, but and of course there are charter fishing boats and pregnant women, and shouldn't be eating this fish. And but nobody is about ready to stand up to the seafood industry. Little tiny fish like red breast sunfish have 359,000 parts per trillion because they're eating the detritus, and they're feeding off of the invertebrates, and they're caked with PFAS that drains out of the wastewater treatment plants from Joint Base Andrews. And so here it is. This woman should not be eating the fish she caught. That's a largemouth bass there. Hell, we've got some fish near military bases with 10 million parts per trillion. So, I will go around the world, and as long as God gives me the strength to speak this truth, I will speak it. This is, in my estimation, the most serious public health crisis in the world, ever. Municipal drinking water is okay for the most part in most jurisdictions, and if it's not, it will be in 2 years nationwide. Groundwater is not. And so if you live near an industrial military site, within 20 miles or so, you ought to have your water tested. And of course, states ought to be testing it as well. And we can't rely on the military, for God's sakes, to test individual private water. What they're doing on bases and off bases is they're testing it at 10 feet below the ground surface, and they're testing it 250 feet. And they're saying, hey, look, man, there's hardly any PFAS in the ground at all. Well, the stuff sinks. And so maybe it hasn't sunk too far, or maybe, and so they're not testing, say, the groundwater at 75 or 100 feet down, where that may be the sweet spot. But here's just some numbers for you. And these numbers were mostly put together by the EPA more than 10 years ago. And you get an idea, man. Look at these fish, the concentrations. This is just PFOS. But man, the average is 175, 80,000. And we don't want to drink PFOS in water over 4, but we can eat this. This is where we are consuming PFAS. It's the fish. Okay, let me just switch gears, man. Had to do this. So I was asked to join this PFAS group from Fort Ord, because there's just a lot of PFAS Fort Ord near Monterey, and all kinds of conversations about Agent Orange in that Facebook page group. And so I started taking interest in it, and did some research, and I found that they sprayed Agent Orange for 20 years on 9,000 acres of land. And, that's why there's so much sickness at Fort Ord. So Agent Orange is made with a 50-50 mix of 2,4,5-T and 2,4-D. And 2,4,5-T has the dioxin in it, and it makes for babies that have 3 heads. The idiots will spray it on 9,000 acres, and then they do burns every now and then. So in order to remove UXO, unexploded ordnance, they like to burn the area first. And so the poor people downwind near Monterey are breathing this stuff. Agent Orange can contaminate soil for 100 years, and it becomes airborne. This woman is a hero. She made it come alive for me. This woman came down with multiple myeloma. Her name is Julie Akey. She served for 1.5 years at Fort Ord. And she came down with multiple myeloma, I guess about 6 years ago. She had chemo, I know, on Wednesday. And I talked to her, and she was woozy, but I mean, I don't know how long she's going to hang on. I love this woman. Anyhow, she wanted to know if anybody else got sick from multiple myeloma, in her neighborhood. So, yeah, she found 138 people either dead or dying of multiple myeloma in her neighborhood. My God, she put together a database of 1,500 people, and most of these people are suffering from diseases from Agent Orange or PFAS or trichloroethylene. All 3 are killers, and they're killing people not just at Fort Ord, but everywhere. The military knows it, and they don't give a damn, because they're murderers and they're liars. These are the cancers that Julie's reported. Most of them are attributable, I believe, to dioxin exposure in drinking water. And this guy is a liar and a scoundrel. His name is Dr. Alvin Young, and he's the Pentagon's point man. And he says that it doesn't hurt you. He says it doesn't exist in most locations. That's all I got. Have a happy day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pat.
Yep.
We are, I believe that Marguerite is back. And so we will give her a couple of minutes to finish up her part. And then I know we have a video from Pat. So let's see, you get to stop sharing. Thank you very much, Pat. Your work is under recognized. I like how you are throwing appreciation to other people as well. We appreciate you. We appreciate the work you're doing.
How do I
everybody.
stop sharing?
There's the little button on the top, take your scroll and hit stop share at the top of your screen, and then it'll
Oh, that,
go
yeah, it was
away.
covered.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was covered. Thank you for your work. I always have to take a step back. I appreciate being on your email list. I have to take a step back and focus on what to do. Because really the science is not quite caught up with the what to do part right now. So it is important that we keep pushing. Let's see, Marguerite, Ellen put your latest newsletter in the chat. Let's see, see if I can.
Well, Pat, people who are interested in learning more and reading Pat's articles can go to militarypoisons.org. Hi, Marguerite, glad you're back.
Me too.
Sometimes that happens. Did you get informed of where we lost you?
I think I do. I'll share the screen and you can tell me if I'm off. The military, as Pat pointed out, claims that PFAS is necessary for national security. But I can tell you that the military weapons that we're using today and so many of the products contain PFAS, and that, for example, our war in Afghanistan ruined, devastated that environment for which we have not spent any money cleaning it up or being held accountable. And this is true of weapons today. They literally destroy the environment, and PFAS only adds to that destruction. Cleaning PFAS up at military sites and bases is at least $31 billion. And the military is not even beginning to spend that amount of money that it needs to on cleanup. The green revolution is not so green. Almost everything that we're counting on to help us change the issues around climate, wind turbines, solar panels, electric cars, they all rely on PFAS. And the industry says you have to have PFAS to have this green energy revolution. But the sad part is that there are safer alternatives. The International Chemical Secretariat in Europe is looking at safer alternatives and has a tool where you can look for safer alternatives in almost every industry. So we really can't have a green transition of energy with PFAS. We can't sacrifice our environment and our health for climate. We need to work on all together. And the chemical industry is spending a lot of money, let me tell you, on fighting any legislation dealing with PFAS. Food and Water Watch documented that the US chemical industry alone spent $110 million during the last 2 election cycles, and they were successful. They killed bills, many bills. We got very few effective national or state PFAS bills passed. And they narrowed the definition of PFAS. They increased timelines for compliance, every strategy they could think of to actually postpone where we're at. So our particular coalition was able on Friday, this past Friday, to get a piece of PFAS legislation passed into law. We were able to pass S-25. It's not the strongest bill we would have liked to have seen, but we got it passed. And it's more than many states are currently doing. Our goal as a coalition is to ban PFAS as the class of chemicals by 2030.
Thank you, Marguerite. I know I can see you have a lot of slides. Could you maybe go to the last slide because we have a video?
That's fine. That's
Okay, thank
fine.
you. Sorry about
I'm
that.
glad. Thank you for letting me finish that little bit. I think Pat Hynes asked me to introduce her quickly, and she is doing her presentation, which has been pre-taped, on Saving Gaza Begins with Its Water. Pat is a retired environmental engineer and professor of environmental health from Boston University School of Public Health, where she co-directed community-based environmental justice projects. She works, writes, and speaks on peace, social justice, women's equality, and environmental justice issues. And she directed the Trap Rock Center for Peace and Justice in Massachusetts and currently serves on the board. So she's created a video for us.
Thank you. Thank you. And Lucille has it ready to go.
I want to thank the committee who worked long and assiduously on this Congress on the critical themes of women, water, and peace. There are many tragic militarized conflicts in the world. None is so devastating to women and so destructive to water as Israel's ecocidal war on Gaza. In late 2020, a report titled "Saving Gaza Begins with Its Water" stated, "The water crisis in Gaza is a problem of daunting proportions, with grave implications for the more than 2 million inhabitants of the besieged Palestinian enclave. The people of Gaza are almost completely dependent on the underlying groundwater from the coastal aquifer, which is on the very left of this map, as their principal water resource. The aquifer from which it pumps water is diminishing, but more dangerously, it is experiencing significant deterioration from seawater and highly saline groundwater intrusion, as well as sewage pollution. Despite having other natural water resources, Israel has consistently drawn 75% of the sustainable groundwater amount each year from the coastal aquifer, likely exceeding its fair share under international water law. As Gaza runs out of potable water, there is a real likelihood of a large-scale humanitarian disaster that will make the territory's current tribulations, grave as they are, much worse. The predictions from 2020 have come true with almost no safe drinking water in Gaza and extreme contamination of groundwater and nearby coastal waters. Gaza's water scarcity is worsened by its forced closure of water and wastewater treatment plants because of Israel's blockade of fuel to Gaza to run the treatment plants in its 2023-2024 omnicidal war. The authors of the Saving Gaza Begins with Its Water end in a cautiously positive note. The crisis of water in Gaza also holds promise, they wrote, because Gaza's water problem will require cooperation between antagonists to their mutual benefit. There is no solution that can be achieved by Gaza or Israel in isolation. But this affirmative conclusion presumes that the people of Gaza have not been annihilated by the current 8-month Israel blitzkrieg, inflicting a daily death rate greater than any major war in the 21st century, by the most extreme scorched earth to make Gaza unlivable forever for Palestinians, by the loss of health care, with most of its 36 hospitals now in rubble and their existing medical supplies and medicine nearing exhaustion. Given Israel's war-induced famine, projected to occur between mid-March and May 2024, together with extreme dehydration and rampant disease from sewage-contaminated drinking water, how can any negotiations over the mutually shared aquifer possibly take place without a permanent ceasefire and the commencement of peace negotiations? Prior to the current war, Gaza had 150 small-scale desalination plants to produce potable water for a small percent of the population. By mid-October 2023, Israeli missile attacks destroyed the drinking water desalination plants, and its almost total blockade cut off fuel to run the water treatment plants, as well as metal parts to repair them. Gaza's drinking water production capacity dropped to just 5% of typical levels, according to UNICEF. Israel's military has been injecting high-flow seawater into Hamas-built tunnels beneath the Gaza Strip, while researchers have warned that flooding tunnels with seawater could have a devastating effect on Gaza's already scarce freshwater supplies, and might destabilize buildings. One of the biggest concerns is that seawater used to flood the tunnels will contaminate the coastal aquifer irreparably, which supplies nearly 80% of Gaza's water and will impact all aspects of life in Gaza, agriculture, and soil infrastructure. Compounding all of this, all 5 of Gaza's wastewater treatment plants lost power within the first few weeks of the current conflict. As a result, sewage has flowed freely through the streets, causing a record increase in cases of diarrheal diseases and illnesses. By December 2023, cases of diarrhea among children under 5 in Gaza jumped 2,000%, according to UNICEF, because of which children under 5 are over 20 times more likely to die from diarrheal diseases than from violence. Before the 2023 war, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza had access to 80 liters of water per day, which is 20% below the international standard of 100 liters set by the World Health Organization. Since the start of the war, the average consumption of water for all purposes in Gaza has fallen to between 2 and 3 liters a day per person for drinking, cooking, and bathing. By contrast, the average American family uses more than 1,130 liters of water per day at home, according to the EPA. 3 liters is the bare minimum amount of water a person needs to drink in order to avoid health crises related to dehydration, including organ damage and failure. More than 3/4 of Gaza's 2.2 million people are internally displaced. More than 1 million are crammed into Rafah, a tiny sliver of land with a population that is now 5 times larger than it was before the war. Communicable diseases are on the rise, not only due to water contamination, but also intense overcrowding and a healthcare sector on the brink of collapse. In some of the most overcrowded shelters in southern Gaza, there is 1 toilet per 600 internally displaced persons and little to no running water. Every human being in Gaza suffers excruciating, soul-shattering existence from the war of annihilation, variably described as genocide, ecocide, domicide, the destruction of homes, and scholasticide, destruction of schools and universities. Indeed, 2 American trauma surgeons who have volunteered for surgical missions in crisis situations all over the world stated recently that they have never seen cruelty like Israel's genocide in Gaza. And women and children are its gravest victims. 70% of those killed are women and children. In January 2024, UNICEF, the UN Children's Fund, which works closely with women and new mothers, reported that since the start of the war in October 2023, they've distributed more than 41,000 hygiene kits in Gaza, which include menstrual pads and other items like soap, wipes, toilet paper, detergent, and diapers. Yet it's a tiny fraction of what's needed. UNICEF reported nearly 70 trucks with more of these kits and other essential items like tents and water. Clothes were at border crossings for weeks, waiting for Israeli checks to enter. This deprivation has continued through 2024. As of late February 2024, the UN estimated that some 700,000 women and girls in Gaza experienced menstrual cycles but didn't have adequate access now to basic hygiene products like pads, toilet paper, running water, and toilets because of the war. These conditions put women and girls in Gaza at risk of reproductive and urinary tract infections. A spokesperson for UNICEF told NPR, quote, "This situation is particularly challenging for for women and adolescent girls who lack private, safe, and dignified places to manage menstrual hygiene. There are reports this is exacerbating mental health. Most Gazans are living in overcrowded UN-run schools. Others are living in tents and on the streets as Israeli evacuation orders push people further and further south. And as the Israeli military expands deeper into Gaza, women wake early and line up at hospitals to shower before water runs out for the day. Others just to use the bathroom. The challenge of trying to find an available bathroom is especially difficult for pregnant women who have pressure on their bladder and women who've just given birth and are going through weeks of postpartum bleeding. Marie-Aurée Perrault-Ruvial, emergency coordinator for Doctors Without Borders, was in Gaza in December 2023 and reported women were coming to one of the main health centers where the group was operating to request birth control pills in order to block their periods because of the lack of available pads and water. They were asking for family planning methods so they would not be faced with situations where they had to find water and have to choose water either to clean their children or to clean themselves. Some mothers have resorted to washing clothes and bathing their children in the sea, itself polluted with sewage, and risking their lives under Israeli bombing. In early March 2024, Relief Web reported there has been a steep rise in malnutrition among the more than 155,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women. Every day, about 180 women give birth in unimaginable conditions. Most no longer have the healthcare facilities they need to deliver their babies. Many mothers who have given birth since the beginning of Israel's war are too malnourished to produce milk for their newborn, but there is no powdered milk in the markets and next to no clean water with which to mix it. A UN Women rapid assessment of 120 women conducted last month revealed that the majority, 84%, said their family eats half or less than what they did before the war. Although mothers and adult women are tasked with sourcing food, they are the ones who eat last, less, and least, skipping at least one meal to feed their children. Some women are now reporting to scavenging for food under rubble or in dumpsters. The world's top group tracking food emergencies reported on March 17th that famine is now projected and imminent in northern Gaza within 6 weeks, and that half of the population of the Gaza Strip, that would be 1,100,000 people, is expected to face catastrophic conditions, with starvation and death expected to be widespread. Jemana Shaheen, a women's rights activist in Gaza, says women's needs are being neglected because of the scale of the humanitarian crisis gripping Gaza. The situation does not have a solution, she says. You ask if there are alternatives, there are none. What can be done without Israel and the United States agreeing to end their totalistic war? Dima Nazal, a systems engineer at the Georgia Institute of Technology, believes that while rebuilding Gaza is a daunting prospect, with cooperation, coordination, and courage, it is achievable. But the war must be ended. Only then can international cooperation and support begin to rebuild Gaza. The UN and World Bank, NGOs, and neighboring and other sympathetic countries can then provide financial, technical, and humanitarian assistance. Infrastructure development is vital. This is a photo taken from a model for reconstructing Dresden after being massively firebombed and leveled by the US and British in World War II. Reconstructing Palestine means investing in the development and improvement of water infrastructure, including sewage and wastewater treatment plants, desalination plants, and distribution networks. Promoting water recycling and reuse. Negotiating water sharing agreements with neighboring regions and countries. Conducting immense environmental cleanup and decontamination for the land and soil to be viable for agriculture and olive groves. Rebuilding on the scale of Dresden, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, of housing, hospitals and health centers, schools, energy, transportation, telecommunications, cultural institutions, and economy. A coalition of UN agencies and caring nations must find a way. But first, a political solution. The only way for Israel to live in security is through a political compromise that respects the human rights of the Palestinians who have lived on the land of Palestine for thousands of years. Israel has sought security through militaristic means, expelling Palestinians, the Nakba, encroaching on their land, apartheid, colonizing settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and now omnicide in Gaza. Without justice, the UN recognizing Palestine as a state and organizing the rebuilding of Gaza, there can be no peace. Without justice, there can be no peace. That's a quote from Martin Luther King. Water has long been used as a tactical weapon in war for political and military objectives, bombing dams to drown downstream enemy villages, intentional polluting and or cutting off of an enemy's water supply. In this context, water is death. But since the first life on Earth emerged almost 4 billion years ago, water has sustained life. And that is what Gaza needs and has a human right to in order to live again.
Okay, hi all. So something I've been chatting to Pat about since the visit of the Golden Rule is basically, I don't know, Pat, if this came through, but I would really like to propose that every WILF branch contact also basically start to collect local information about our water, like from a local data and have our own data about the water. So I have been doing that through this DC Citizen Science water quality monitoring program that exists. And the question for you, Pat, is that I've been doing this, and I'll drop a video of me doing it in the chat. But when I was asking them whether they test for PFAS, they said that they can't do it because it's too expensive and because it's really hard to get like a good read or something like this. So I just wanted to get some information, and I know Marguerite put some information about PFAS tests in the chat. But basically, like, what should we be aware of when it comes to assessing the data that exists about PFAS in our various water sources?
Well, EPA holds all the cards, and they are looking out first and foremost for their corporate clients. And the company called CycloPure got a $4 million grant from the National Institute of Environmental Sciences, and they developed a revolutionary new mechanism to test water. It only costs $79. It is not approved by the EPA. Normal tests cost about $350, and you have to send them to labs like Eurofins or Alpha Analytical, and it has to be on ice, and it's very easy to goof up. So I think that sort of answers your question. And, you know, the federal government is doing what it can to dispel any notions of citizens taking responsibility for clean water. And I also appreciate your emphasis on the surface water. It's about the surface water. As I said earlier, Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, the water that you may drink is pretty clear of PFAS.
So, we're at 5:45. We can't start the next one late. I do know that the Environmental Working Group is also creating a database, and citizen science is a movement. Look it up and Google it, because it's a way for everyone to become involved in science data collection. So that's very interesting. A nice thought, Tara. Sue Ann, I'm going to ask you to put your question into the chat. There's a lot of stuff going on into the chat, a lot of good information, and we are bringing up Eileen now because Eileen has a video. Eileen is going to kind of bring us back to the plastics, right? And being able to connect with what the real down to earth nitty gritty, what we can do, bottled or tap water. So let's see. Somebody's probably highlighting her. There you go. And then we've got her video. So thank you.
Just a quick check on the PFAS. Massachusetts has had a law on it since March last year, and a local place has been FDA has found that there's PFAS in the water of their bottle, and then there was some sort of retraction on it, but it's still there. It's just, I guess, within a certain limit.
Well, thank you. I don't want my rushing through to the next one to.
Please do, because I know mine is set for 26 minutes and there'll be no questions.
But I just wanted to say thank you to the Environmental Working Group. So thanks.
Yes, they were great, all of them. Hello, I'm Eileen Kurkoski, a co-chair of the Wilf-Boston branch and a member of this Congress committee. I'm sharing with you some of what I've learned in my research to answer a question. Is bottled water safer than tap water? Let's first consider why we even have bottled water. I agree with Peter Click that bottled water is a symptom of many problems. One is that our U.S. public water systems are old, and the 1940s pipes are bleeding some lead into our clean water. Updating the old pipes has been very slow in low-income areas, and this inequitable system in the U.S. occurs around the world. Also, we have a growing number of new chemicals like plastics, etc., coming from industries going into our water utility systems, making it difficult for them to keep up with ways to filter these new items out. Bottled water is also growing because of an inequitable access to safe water around the world. Pollution, droughts, and storms prevent safe water from getting to millions of people. And next, bottled companies use clever advertising and marketing. Clever advertising started the whole bottled water fad. In the 1980s, during New York's Fashion Week, many glamorous and beautiful models walked down catwalks for the most high-end fashion houses in the world. They were carrying a very unusual accessory, a large Evian plastic water bottle. They used fashion models to launch the campaign, promising the water sold in these plastic bottles was superior to tap water and promised to make you more beautiful and slimmer, have better skin, and be healthier. Other water bottle companies brought in A-list celebrities to promote their products. And the last item, I think you can agree that our society has been trained from birth to buy, consume, and throw away. Now, let's go into a little history. In 1900, Jersey City, New Jersey was the first U.S. city to chlorinate its drinking water to reduce the rates of typhoid, cholera, and other water-related diarrheal diseases. The health benefits were immediate, and other cities followed suit. As industry developed more was needed to provide safe water. In 1962, Rachel Carson published her attack on the indiscriminate use of pesticides in her book, Silent Spring. Air and water pollution had spread in the wake of disasters. An offshore oil rig in California fouled beaches with millions of gallons of spilled oil. Near Cleveland, Ohio, the Cuyahoga River, choking with chemicals contaminants, had spontaneously burst into flames. Heightened public concern led to President Nixon to pass and finance the Environmental Protection Act in December 1970. In the 1960s and 70s, strong government laws were passed to deal with accumulated sewage, pollution, oils, and trash killing our lakes and rivers. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency centralized and standardized inconsistent federal and state laws for environmental protection. The Clean Air Act was passed, but that's not part of this presentation. And then the Clean Water Act. This is a permit program in which the EPA authorizes state governments to perform many permitting, administrative, and enforcement aspects of the program. Individual homes that are connected to a municipal water system, use a septic system, or do not have surface discharges do not need this permit. But the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit is needed for industrial, municipal, and other facilities if their discharges go directly to surface waters. And then in 1974, the Safe Drinking Water Act set important additional rules like monitoring water quality and for what water providers must do if contamination is found. It also requires public water systems to provide an annual Consumer Confidence Report, CCR, report to their customers. These annual drinking water quality reports provide Americans with information about where their water comes from, the status of drinking water quality, potential health benefits, and an account of the system's actions to restore safe drinking water when issues occur. I do recommend you read these well and closely beyond the narrative. Any water quality law is only as good as the frequency of the inspections, the independence of tests, and the effectiveness of enforcement. The EPA sets standards and regulations for the presence and levels of over 90 contaminants in public drinking water, including E. coli, salmonella, cryptosporidium, metals such as lead, and the disinfection byproducts. Also, municipal systems tested for coliform, the bacteria in human and animal waste. Interstate bottled water streams are tested once per week for this bacteria. Municipal systems have more testing requirements than bottled water. Communities with fewer than 50,000 inhabitants must test 60 times per month. Systems serving 2.5 million customers or more must test 425 times per month. So this would include New York City, LA, and Chicago. And municipal systems with fewer than 1,000 people must only test quarterly. Although the FDA and the EPA check for contaminants, they have been slow in adding these new contaminants to their tests or lists. An example is the forever chemicals, PFAS. These have been a big concern for over 40 years. Last month, the EPA and President Biden announced a legally enforceable drinking water standard to protect communities from exposure to 5 harmful PFAS chemicals, which have been linked to deadly cancers, which impact the liver and heart, harm immune systems, and do developmental damage to infants and children. And for your information, some plastics contain PFAS products, and some use a hardening chemical called bisphenol A or S, or also called BPA or BPS, that affect the reproductive system. Let's continue. Public water issues in U.S. cities. More than 90% of Americans have access to drinking water through public water systems, which are regulated at the state and local level according to federal guidelines. As of 2021, about 1% of all public water systems had violations. In 2021, there were 501,000 total water quality violations across all U.S. states and territories. More than 60% of the violations were due to monitoring and reporting issues. About 28% were public notification violations, and 7.4% were health-related violations, which I will soon cover. Potential health-based violations, however, may be underestimated because of inadequate reporting. Now, which states have the highest rate? Between 20 and 2012, American Samoa had the highest rate of violations per public water systems at over 133, followed by West Virginia, 65, and Puerto Rico at 42. Hawaii had the lowest number of violations per public water systems, and then followed by Minnesota and South Carolina. The average number of violations per public water systems between 2012 and 21 was 15.2. Now, American Samoa is a poor country with significant and varied drinking water problems. Ongoing boil water notices impact the majority of their population. Its American Samoan Army Reserve soldiers are considered vital to the U.S. and the Pacific. So in February this year, the Biden-Harris administration announced nearly $23 million for American Samoa drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure upgrades as part of the Biden Investing in America agenda. Now, and regarding the total health-based violations by state, Puerto Rico had the highest rate of violations per public water systems at 7.5, but these problems were from the repeated storms. Michigan had the lowest rate, which I questioned because it was only 0.3. And evidently in Flint, after a continued decade of lead issues, they only report one violation. The other low ones were in Washington and New York at 0.4. The average number of health-based violation per public systems between 2012 and 2021 was 1.7. West Virginia, though, is the worst offender in mainland U.S. and reflects where most violations come from across the nation. In the U.S., small, often rural community water systems are among the top offenders, along with systems responsible for serving communities of color and those living in low socioeconomic conditions. In West Virginia, most residents live rurally, and many depend on small community water systems. Overall, systems nationwide serving less than 3,300 people accounted for more than 80% of SDWA, that's that Safe Drinking Water Act, violations, according to the study. Even smaller systems serving less than 500 were reportedly responsible for more than 60% of SDWA violations and for 50% of the health-based violations. Now I want to focus on bottled water, some of which comes from municipal water systems. I begin with the companies that profit the most. Notice, Nestle Waters' profits exceed all the other companies combined. It makes $104.11 billion a year from the business. These numbers aren't surprising. It is estimated that the profit margin ranges from 35 to 40% for convenience-sized water bottles. So I have to put a little editorial here. Plastics have brought many benefits to society, but their mismanagement is a serious environmental problem, and they may be affecting our health. For years, we have been hearing reports of the hundreds of sea creatures and seabirds who are dying from plastic debris in the oceans. Does it not make sense that plastic is not healthy for us? The Environmental Protection Agency and other federal agencies given oversight over our drinking water has no authority over bottled water. The FDA regulates bottled water because it's considered a food product sold in individual containers. Shouldn't consumers ask why bottled water is considered a food? And why is it not treated as water and under EPA regulations? So I must add, the FDA rules apply more if bottled water travels to another state, but approximately 70% of bottled water stays in state. The FDA requires testing to be done as often as necessary to collect and analyze source water, and there are exceptions. But states can, and they are adding more requirements. The very strict states of Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Alaska require bottlers to test for contaminants at the same frequency as the public water suppliers. But I have to note that the FDA does have more stringent lead rules for bottled water companies. These companies can clear out lead much more easily than the public systems with their old lead leaking pipes. Overall, the regulations for bottled water may, but we'll question that more, may be adequate, but the labeling on the water containers are often inaccurate. To track down water testing results, consumers must know in which state the water and bottled water companies are located, and it's often difficult to find results. We seldom know what kind of water is bottled or precisely where it comes from. Truthful labeling would include all of these: the source, mineral content, processes used to purify the water, the name, location, and phone number of the bottler, and info on where to get up-to-date water quality test results. Now, I'm including some labeling suggestions that bottlers use, some bottlers use. On the left, note the actual location, despite its name, of Arctic waters, which comes from southern New Jersey, Tennessee, LA, Florida, and not the Arctic. And at the bottom, Yosemite bottled water comes from the LA municipal system. We should be having this kind of labeling. On the right, you see minerals listed in the European mineral water labels. And minerals give water its taste. And note number 4, arsenic is listed and may be removed in some systems. More is needed on U.S. bottle labels, including a way to obtain more information. As of 2008, all bottlers in California are licensed to bottle water for sale and distribution in California must prepare a bottled water report. The report is to be made available to each customer upon request. And adding a phone number for this is very important. Wisconsin's Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection posts online yearly reports of their 22 bottled water processors. Just an idea. Now, BJ's Wholesale Club illuminates some information that I think is important. And so I include this because you know basically what's going on with the water. New York City has its own bottled water licensing and a certificate training program. That's why we could get this information. It provides a list of bottlers across the country that are currently certified by New York and those that are not certified to sell bottled water in New York. To obtain this info, you just Google search water, adding these NYSHD certification number. Most likely, the water in this bottle comes from the Diamond Bar's municipal water system. When companies use municipal waters, they often purify the water with reverse osmosis, which clears out everything, good and bad minerals, viruses, and chemicals, including 99% of PFAS. The water is left tasteless with the reverse osmosis process, so bottlers will often add minerals back in. I needed to research hard to find information regarding contaminated bottled water. My research was sidetracked several times on this topic and on bottling company regulations. And these sidetracks often came from bottling industries. Okay. Enforcement and recalls. In Peter Glick's book, Bottled and Sold, he writes of his efforts to obtain information. In 2006, under the Freedom of Information, he requested a list of all recalls that were not listed on the FDA website database and received only 5. He knew there were more, and with an appeal, he received 100 more. And he adds, there were incidences in which recalls were sent out long after the water was sold. In 2019, Consumer Report provided this: FDA inspections have found some companies failed quality standards for bottled water, but the agency didn't take significant action. So over the past decades, the FDA has cited companies at least 14 times for failing to meet federal quality standards for bottled water, but in most of those cases, the agency didn't enforce a recall of products that might not yet have been consumed, according to this report. This research let's go on. I went too fast. There was another study, and this is very pertinent to what's going on now. It was on microplastics, showing that at least 90% were tested in water bottles. But the effects of the microplastics on human health are far from clear. So this study covered 259 water bottles, and 90% of them showed contamination. These were from 9 countries, and it included both small size and very, very small sizes of microplastic. Having looked at that, the World Health Organization has been doing really hard work to come up with something to control pollution. And I found this article. Is it the beginning of the end of plastic pollution? This was, of course, in February. In the fight against plastic pollution, the United Nations has committed to deliver a legally binding agreement by the end of 2024. That is so hopeful. Things to consider if you even think about reaching for a bottle of convenience. How much energy and water went into making the convenience bottle? You see the amounts here for energy, and you have to add the transport energy and the liters of water that went into it. And where will the bottle land up? You have to consider 10% of plastic is recycled. That's not much worldwide. I went too fast on that one. I apologize. And what plastic contaminants might be in your water? Are microplastics in its water source or in the bottle itself? More things. If forever chemicals are not listed in the 2024 EPA Biden administration, are there more? There are hundreds of chemicals in the PFAS family. You have to consider the lack of transparency and or difficulty in obtaining information about many bottled water processing companies. Consider the monetary costs. And of course, that plastic bottles are made from fossil fuels, contaminating and causing more climate damage. This is another slide that makes me hopeful. In Paris, you can go through most parks and you will find somewhere along the way fountains in every single park. London has 50 new locations, and they put these fountains in to cut down on single-use plastic. And in the city of Los Angeles, we find that they're installing and refurbishing 200 refill drinking water stations just in time for the 2028 Summer Olympics. Now, what can we do? Personally, we can learn more about your own public water system. And if you're not satisfied with their standards, request and demand higher ones. Consider purchasing a water filter that will eliminate more contaminants, especially the lead, PFAS, chemicals, plastic, bisphenol. Globally, practice and teach the 6 R's for plastics: reduce, reuse, recycle, remove, refuse, and rally. And rally your legislators, asking them to install hundreds of clean water fountains or refill stations in your city parks. Well, I want to thank you for listening while I've given you so many details. And I apologize if I've made any errors, and suggest that for this, check my resources, and whatever you hear or read, please do your own research. I thank you. More things. If forever chemicals are not listed in the 2024 EPA Biden administration, are there more? There are hundreds of chemicals in the PFAS family. You have to consider the lack of transparency and or difficulty in obtaining information about many bottled water processing companies. Consider the monetary costs. And of course, that plastic bottles are made from fossil fuels, contaminating and causing more climate damage. This is another slide that makes me hopeful. In Paris, you can go through most parks and you will find somewhere along the way fountains in every single park. London has 50 new locations, and they put these fountains in to cut down on single-use plastic. And in the city of Los Angeles, we find that they're installing and refurbishing 200 refill drinking water stations just in time for the 2028 Summer Olympics. Now, what can we do? Personally, we can learn more about your own public water system. And if you're not satisfied with their standards, request and demand higher ones. Consider purchasing a water filter that will eliminate more contaminants, especially the lead, PFAS, chemicals, plastic, bisphenol. Globally, practice and teach the 6 R's for plastics: reduce, reuse, recycle, remove, refuse, and rally. And rally your legislators, asking them to install hundreds of clean water fountains or refill stations in your city parks. Well, I want to thank you for listening while I've given you so many details. And I apologize if I've made any errors and suggest that for this, check my resources, and whatever you hear or read, please do your own research. I thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Lot of information packed in there. I love in the chat where we're talking about our own water bottles, and I've got mine here because I'm sitting in front of the computer all day. I know you've got one there too. I suppose there are a couple of references that you might want to drop in the chat for us as we move on to our next speaker.
Please, you really have to look at each slide. That's where the references were.
Okay, alrighty. Well, just going to encourage us to take a break, take a stretch break, because we're just really coming at you with lots of information today. It's coming hot and heavy. We had some breaks early. We don't have as many right now, and I want to recognize that. I also want to see. I want to just tell you a little bit about our next speaker as he gets ready, because I have to say our Congress Planning Committee has been really excited about this. Moses West is going to present on water scarcity and the future, and he's got really a lot of great ideas, and not just ideas but actual implementation. He's worked endlessly over the past 10 years to manufacture the most energy efficient, high volume water producing atmospheric water generator, which what we were just saying, his water machine, right? Moses water machine, when we were talking about it. So I also need to tell you that he's doing the work. He's showing up in places from Puerto Rico to Mississippi and Flint, and he's doing it. We want to, it's really important to the Congress Planning Committee that we not just throw the hard facts at you, right? We want to build up, we want to talk about the action and the advocacy. And so we're very thrilled to welcome Moses West to this space with a Wilf welcome. Even though it's on Zoom, we're giving you applause, and we thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule to be here. Moses, they're about to highlight you, I know. Where?
An inventor, and he's going to share with us some of his inventions he believes will be a part of the solution for water scarcity.
Hello, there you are.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me on. Let me set my cup down. You're in my office right now. This is where I build these machines, the machines that you see behind me. Heard a lot of conversation today about the pollution and the pollutants in water, PFAS, bisphenol A, all the endocrine disruptors, a variety of chemicals that are out there. Well, I spent years studying that and just listening to it. And then I could see that nobody was truly making any progress in doing anything to really help the situation in my sphere. I know that you all probably know people who are doing things to actually help and do some good, but I decided that I needed to focus my energy and not make myself go crazy over the absolute doomsday scenario of where we find ourselves with water scarcity around the planet. Living in Australia, I could see, I lived it. I experienced it. I experienced the droughts. I experienced the floods, the death and destruction from the fires and from the floods. People that you know, towns that you used to go visit. And coming back to the United States, having a background in engineering from flying aircraft, different types of aircraft throughout my life. What I did was I found a piece of technology where I thought, when I first saw it, I said, this is absolutely brilliant. I'm sitting here next to this little machine about the size of a old-fashioned water fountain, the kind you used to see in the bus stations and places. And I said, well, this machine is in my neighbor's house, and it's making a few gallons of water a day, a few liters of water a day. And I said, it's very convenient. But if it was bigger, this would be absolutely fantastic. So what I decided to do was, that made me absolutely driven to figure out this technology. Because after I saw this, I thought to myself, my goodness, water comes in 3 sources on the planet. It's a finite source. We have the same amount of water that we have today, that we had billions of years ago. Every cloud that you see in the sky, every drop of water in the ocean, it's the same drop of water that's been here. No addition, no subtraction from it. The Earth is a closed sphere. It's a sphere. All the water that's there is there. The only way you can get rid of water from the planet is if you got to put it in a rocket and shoot it into space. That's the only way to get rid of water. Even if you frack with water, you fill it full of chemicals, and this is coming back to us in the water contamination. PFAS is coming back to us. All the chemicals that any plant used in their manufacturing process, they took clean water in. The sun's going down here at my shop, so forgive me for the glasses. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, you're doing great. Yes, thanks.
Okay. No, thank you. And so it's like it's really funny because right now my shop is closed down. Everybody's gone home, and I'm standing out here in the parking lot next to the machine. So it kind of feels like I'm out here by myself. So yeah. So all these chemicals, all the chemicals that all these plants use in the processes to produce all the materials for the industrial revolution and the different things that that the world has done to grow economically, financially, and to raise the living standards of people around the world. Well, some of these processes are very toxic, but you use water, so the water will rush through there. They put it in the rivers. Hence, today we have the problems that we have with contaminated water, the cancers, the deaths. And so that water is the solid water that we have on the liquid water that we have on the earth. And I could see how much of it was contaminated. And after seeing that machine making me think about the 3 sources of water, liquid, solid, and the gas, the chemical processes that contaminate the liquid source, then you can't get to the sources that are in the Arctic. Oh, but don't worry. All the water that you see in Antarctica, you will get to see it because it's melting so fast. It will be visiting the entire planet here in very short order. So, but that is turning into liquid water. So we have liquid water, we have gaseous water, and we have solid water. So I thought about it and I said, look, the gaseous state of water, from the surface to 10,000 feet, we have water scarcity all over the planet. And I remember seeing people in Central Africa, and they were saying they're in the middle of a drought, and they're next to the ocean, or they're next to a forest. And the only thing I can say is after I started developing this technology, there's no such thing as a drought. Because right now I'm standing in water. I'm standing in the most abundant source of water outside of the ocean on the earth, the atmosphere, from the surface to 10,000 feet. Every cloud that you see up in the sky, every cloud that you see, that's all water. The machine behind me, what it does, it takes that water that you see there, condenses it. We borrow it for the time that we need to use it. We drink it, we expel it. It goes where? It goes right back up there. So the machines, what they actually do is they just did a documentary, and they said the water temperature around the planet is growing so high, so is raising so fast, so high, that we're looking at storms this year to the likes that we've probably never seen because water temperatures are so high. But with so much moisture in the air, people would say sometimes about the technology, you're going to change the atmosphere. That is not possible. That is absolutely impossible. The sun right now is evaporating, causing so much water in the Pacific, in the Atlantic Ocean, every river, stream, every tree to evaporate, that this machine is not going to affect anything on this planet except to help someone survive and live and to produce water where they need it, so women don't have to walk 10 miles that way, 10 miles home, because we know that women carry more water around the world every day than anybody else. All the energy that the women spend carrying water around the world, if I could take that energy and turn it into kilowatts, I could make millions of liters of water with this technology, just on the energy that they spend walking around the planet to get water. So this machine behind me, what it does, and my solution to the problem of water scarcity is right here. I didn't go and do I did the research papers, I did all that. Well, I'm a solutions kind of person. So what I had to do was I had to make a solution, and this is the solution. So in the time that I have, I can stand here and talk all day long about this technology. I've been doing it for a very long time. I'm going to show you a little bit about the machine, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this machine on, and I'm going to show you exactly what it does. So right now what I'll do is I'll turn it on just to kind of get it warmed up. I'll bring you with me.
Getting excited.
Here you go. So I'll bring my little camera with me. Okay, what you're looking at here is the backside of the machine. Inside of here, let me know if you can't hear me or something.
You're
'Cause I
good.
got my headphones on. All right, this is a power cable. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this power cable here, this runs 480 volts. 480 volts. Everybody says, "Oh, that's a lot of power." No, it's not. If you're running 220 and trying to run this machine, you will use more energy. The bigger the line, the faster the flow of energy. The faster the flow of energy, the less friction you have, the less heat you have. If you fill a cable like this when it's electric and it's getting hot, that right there is your energy. That's your energy expenditure. These lines, they stay cold because they move electricity so fast. Have a junction box on the side of the building, and then the inside of the machine. I build two types of machines. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Two types of machines. I build a single stage machine and a dual stage machine. This is a single stage machine. This is old technology. The new technology I build for specific customers. There we go. So, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll come closer.
We see it.
Yeah, we can see it pretty well.
So what you're looking at, there you go. And then I don't have a big ladder, but up top there, that's just all the electronics. It's no big deal. It's just PLC circuit breakers, the control system for it. It's pretty standard stuff for me these days. So it's very simple. People say, "Oh, it's complicated." Nope, it's very simple. And this is it. This is a compressor. This is how I control the temperature to get it down to the place where the dew point is. On the top of the machine, there's some turbines. In the electrical box there's some speed controllers, VFDs, variable speed drives, variable frequency drives that operate a computer system on this machine because it's not a dumb machine. It's a very smart machine. And what the machine does is it's chasing the dew point. So on a day when it's hot and humid, it doesn't need as much energy to operate. So this guy can calm down a little bit. So what I don't think I've ever had this on video before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the side, and I'll come over here so that you can actually see this first time I've done this. So let me see, can I do this? Nope, that's not gonna work. Okay, I'm gonna go on the side where I turn it on. Here, I'll bring you over there first. There's a lot of sun out here today.
Mhm.
Can y'all see me good?
Yeah.
Because I can't see the
Yes.
screen at all.
Yeah, we can still see you. We're good.
Okay. It's really bright. So this thing on right now it's on auto. Okay. I'm gonna hit this switch right here and it's gonna turn it on. Then I'm gonna run over there real quick and hopefully you can hear the compressor come on. Okay. Quick. You heard that?
Yep.
You hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
What's it doing?
The machine. Well,
Tell us.
it's starting to condense water. So what's going to happen now is the turbines are, let me close these for noise. There you go. So whatever you hear right now, that's how loud it is. It's not very loud at all.
No.
This tickety tick sound, that's the compressor. And so now the machine it's on, it's working. I had to override the automatic system to turn it on because the machine we turn it on and we use it every day. And so this machine is actually full of water.
Hmm.
There's this a section right here. This section right here has a water tank inside of it, and there's 2,000 liters of water in there. Hopefully during the process of us talking, what's going to happen is this system right here, I'll be able to look at that window, and I'll be able to show you the process of making water. But the magic of this system being on right now is this, what I'm about to show you. We say all the time, what do we say? We say we're running out of water around the world, right? There's no water. In Jackson, Mississippi, we don't have water. It's 80% humidity in Jackson, Mississippi. We don't have any water. So we're in another location in the Middle East. We say we don't have any water. In Arizona and New Mexico, we say we don't have any water. I'll try to get really close to this for dramatic effect. Okay, let's see. I think I can't see myself, so hopefully y'all can see me.
We can still see you.
All right. So this guy right here, this is what the machine is doing right now. Do you see that?
Yes.
Wow. That looks pretty clean.
Can you see that?
Yes.
It's very clean. I think I got a cup. I got a glass. I got a glass in here. I can show you. Hang on one sec. I'll be right back.
So is he saying that water that just came out after he turned the machine on, it came out of the atmosphere?
Out of the atmosphere.
All this water is from the atmosphere.
But just since you turned the machine on?
No, he had.
No.
No. Okay.
I dump it out every couple of days and then fill it back up. Just so it just doesn't sit, but it stays cold for probably a week. because the tank inside is so big. 2,000 liters is a lot of water. There was coffee in here earlier, so.
So Moses, most of
Alright.
us, yeah. Most of us are familiar with dehumidifiers in that system, but you know, we want to know about how you have the work you've done to make it clean. You've talked about that. So you want to get a little bit into that part, or look at you, you're enjoying a glass of water.
Well, I like this water because there's no PFAS in my water. And a dehumidifier is nothing like this. A dehumidifier is a machine that you don't change filters on. It's pulling air out of your house, it's pulling lint, dust, dirt, and everything else. There's filters up here on this machine. They filter the air. And then when the air comes inside of this machine, it goes through a process here of condensation. So this condenser here, everything on it is NSF 61 rated. There's a Glidden coat on there, or either on a smaller system, it's all stainless steel. So when an H2O molecule comes in, it's not dragging anything dirty with it. It's not dragging an insect or anything like that, which is the foundation of a bacteria, coliform. So there's no coliforms in this machine. And even if a coliform was in this machine, it's just like the hydrologic cycle. You keep it moving. Like it's Saturday today, so the machine is off. But I turn this machine on Monday, and I just don't turn it off. You don't turn it off, this system continues to run. And just like the hydrologic cycle, this machine does the same thing. So getting past that purity process, I didn't know what I was doing when I first started building these machines. So it was trial and error, old school kind of work. You know, not like going to the university to get it, or going to somebody else or taking something that somebody had and trying to make it. No, I started from scratch. So starting out, you know, making water that wasn't good, to finally working with testing agencies and figuring it all out, how to get the machine to make absolutely pure water. This machine aces the water quality test. We've tested it for PFAS. We've tested it, and that's pulling from the air. Microplastic, there's no microplastics because there's no plastic in any of the piping in here. We use stainless steel, or we use NSF 61 food coated coatings for every item of piping in this machine that touches water. And then the generation that I make right now, other than this generation, that's even cleaner because there's no refrigerant that goes through the coil. So this is developing a technology and advancing it to the place where it's commercially viable. It's very commercially viable. I sell these machines to very select groups of people that need these machines, and continuing to grow. And right now, we've probably looking at. I have to grow because all the people that want them, I can't fill the orders of these machines. So getting rid of that thing of the moniker of dehumidifier, you're taking humidity out of the air, but I'm not dehumidifying it. What it is, I'm generating water.
Got it. Yeah.
There's a dehumidifier, and there is a machine called a water generator. This machine is a water generator.
All right, water generator. Thank you. Thank you for explaining. I know some people are going to have some questions, but we want you to tell us about some of your work in places that needed it, and then I'll open it up for questions. How's that sound?
Oh, sounds great. Well, when I was working closely with agencies in Texas, people asked me, say, they did a television show that won an Emmy, and I was still just testing at that stage of it, but a lot of people started to hear about it from what I was doing on the base. People would come by and visit. So I was going to the store one day and someone said, hey, they said, I saw this thing that you were doing on TV. And it says, hey, here's a check for $1,000. And I said, I can't take your money. I said, I'm a manufacturer that I build equipment, And I don't have a mechanism to take donations or money. They says, oh, we would love for you to take a machine to Puerto Rico or to Flint. And I had machines at the time. And so I thought after a while, I said, you know, I've been doing this for a long time and just getting it developed. I said, I would like to do that. I would like to take a machine somewhere where people could, sun's going that way now. Let me go this way.
Mhm.
Did I light up again?
Yeah, we're good. We see you.
Okay. And so what I did was I had my attorneys make a foundation, and the foundation was called, at that time, it's called the Water Rescue Foundation. I raised enough money to take a machine exactly like this to Puerto Rico, to the island of Vieques, and I got trolled really hard from everybody.
Oh,
We were posting out on social media. You would come and you would see this machine come, and it's coming with this big container, like you see right there.
mm-hmm.
That's what carries this machine. It slides right in there.
Okay.
And so, and I deployed this thing by myself. That's how easy it is. I do this sometimes all by myself. Deploy this thing after a ship. So I made the foundation, and I made enough money to actually pay for the shipping all the way to Puerto Rico, and cover the cost of getting people there to help me, but to stay there, I got to be able to do that, and that's how I started the first rescue mission with water. And then Tesla was there, and I was working with the guys that had a solar array and a battery. So we ran this machine like this, exactly like that. We ran this machine on a sister machine to this one. We ran it on solar power. So that was net zero. So we were making water with absolutely no carbon footprint. And then FEMA sent the water jugs. We gave water to people as fast as we could make it. So if people in Puerto Rico, when I was getting trolled, I ran my machine. As soon as it got there, what I did was like everyone was sitting over there. A lot of people were watching. I still didn't have a place to live yet, but I knew all their water was dirty. So I started this machine up on the generator that's right here. I ran the machine for a little bit. I made a few gallons of water. I went like this. I got my 5-gallon jug. I filled it up. I jumped to my car and I walked away. There was absolute silence. It was the trolling immediately stopped. The next day I went to work. I gave away water for free. You cannot troll what you see when you see it to be true. You can hope it not to be true. You can hope that the person fails, but the more you try to make me fail, the harder I'm going to work. And there's been a lot of people who don't want to see this technology get into your hands. So I sat out there and I provided water for almost a year. And then the FEMA director told me to go home because he goes, you made all of this. Who's going to make it if you die? and I felt pretty bad out there. So we provided drinking water to 15,000 people. The technology worked outstanding. And then I left and came home, and I met someone there who was actually from Flint, Michigan. And they made a video. It's online somewhere, and they followed me around the machine. And I told them, I said, if I ever build another one, I will bring one to Flint, Michigan. Built another one. I brought it to Flint, Michigan.
Okay. Well, great. E. Pratt, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the next question, or do you need for me to read it to you? Yes, thank you. There's a lot of clapping going on. Let's see. I see your question in the chat, but I don't see you. So if you can unmute yourself and ask the question, or if you need me to read it, I can. Oh, Pat E.
I will try. Can you
Okay,
hear
thank
me?
you.
I have bad internet. How much electricity or other source of power is used to create 2,000 liters of water, or whatever that portable unit was that you took to Puerto Rico? How many liters of water did you produce, and how much energy did you need to produce it?
For 1 liter of water that comes out of here, 1 liter of water, that's about a liter I've spilled. 0.08 kilowatts per liter. To pull 1 liter of groundwater, it's 0.12. It's cheaper to make water with this machine than for me to put on and pull it from 100 feet below my 100 feet from underground.
Hmm.
Would you repeat that?
And right
Was
now,
it
the technology, the way
0.0
0.08 kilowatts,
to make 1 liter of water?
8 kWh, kilowatt hours.
Thank you. And can you discuss
Thank you.
that more for people that don't understand the categories that we're talking about, like kilowatts? And can you do some comparisons, analogies, so that we can understand this better?
Well, there's a certain amount of energy, like if you walk, you burn calories. A kilowatt is just a measure of energy. And so what they did with this technology, they said it was very energy intensive. It used too much energy. You can't trade energy, you can't trade fuel for water, energy for water. So what I've done is I had to beat 0.12 kilowatts for the production of water. And what we did was we hooked up an electrical meter to the machine. The machine reads data points every 5 seconds. It reads a data point continuously, and we could change that to read them every 2 seconds, every 3 seconds. But what happens in the course of the day when you download it, you have hundreds of pages of information and data points. And what we did was we calculated out how much water it was making in the state of Texas during the testing for the state of Texas and for the federal government. And we beat the energy consumption of groundwater. So this machine, to have this machine on your property producing water with solar, is cheaper than having a well.
Mm.
The only way you can make your well cheaper is if you put your well pumps on solar power. And it's not going to be cheaper. It's just going to be not using any fossil fuels. So this is old technology. What I'm doing right now is I've developed a system like this that can produce. There's really no limit to the size that I can build these machines now with the developments that I've made to it over the years.
Great, great. We have another comment from Odile. Odile, do you want to get off mute and make your comment? Or do you want me to read it for you? Let's see. I know you're able to do that.
You can read it.
Okay, I can read it. Odile says that she saw on Instagram that someone made a machine that takes water out of the air, but it was a small machine. So I guess are there a lot of people that are making these automatic water generators?
Yes, atmospheric water generators, yes. When I first started out, there were very few. There were some companies out of China, Indonesia, and since I started doing it, I put all my information out online. Any patents I file, I put the information out online. And so people are making small machines, but that's their space. My space is this space.
Okay.
I'm in the industrial space. I don't want to sell a machine just to make a profit so that you could buy it for $2,000 and put it in your house, make water for your family to drink. I'm looking at the humanitarian aspect of saving lives globally. I don't want to just sell a machine to make money. I want to sell a machine to save a life. So I build this big stuff. This thing weighs 26,000 pounds. So you can scour the internet all day long and you can find little tiny machines you sit on your counter can't sit this on your counter, but you can dang sure sit it in a town in Africa and save 15,000 people's lives. That's
Great.
my space.
All right.
Everybody else, they can have the rest of that space. This is mine.
Okay. I'm going to call on Sherry and then Randy. So Sherry, you have a question. Can you unmute?
Yes, I'm wondering, borrowing water out of the atmosphere, does that have an environmental impact? And also, how does that affect butterflies and bees because they need that water and air to survive?
Okay, let's see here for a second. Okay, so right now it's not raining. There's butterflies and there's bees. They're everywhere, right? Right now, I just gave a bunch of water to butterflies and bees that want to pass by. I'm taking the water out of the air, but the water doesn't stay in the machine. When I did this testing in Texas, there was a drought. The only place where we had butterflies and bees and birds and animals were in the place where I had 5 of these machines working and pouring water out. I made my own little river. It was the only place that had wildflowers on the entire base. It didn't do anything to the environment except help the environment. I produced water. You can't keep it. You have to let it back out. If it rains here today and the rain hits the ground, this machine is doing the same thing. I turn it on, and basically what I'm doing is I'm making it rain right here. No detrimental effect. That's one of those things where I'm very passionate about ending that conversation, because right now we have places that have absolutely no water, none, but they have 80% humidity. You bring a machine there, you turn it on, the people live, the animals live. That is not a negative effect. That is a very positive effect on the entire planet to have as many of these machines as possible. There's no PFAS. There's no pre-fluoridated compounds, no microplastics, no forever chemicals, nothing.
Thank you.
Absolutely pure water.
Thank you. I want to get to a couple more questions. Randy Hicks, can you
I had a
unmute?
question. Well, I actually had a 2-part question. One, you talked about financing, and I saw the question come up here again. Do you have governments that have come out to say, yeah, this is a good idea and we should finance it? And have you worked with other organizations that also help people in Africa and other countries? I have a friend of mine who works at Solar Cookers International, who says to be able to purify water, to work with them. Have you worked with other organizations?
I work with some organizations within the United States government. Yes, I do. And I build machines for I build custom machines for clientele.
Very interesting.
But right now what I'm doing is I'm looking at taking this type of machine and going commercial and global with it.
Thank you. We have another
Thank
question.
you.
Lucille, go ahead.
Yeah, so it took me a little while to kick into what you're doing and why and how it works. I lived a long time ago in the late 70s, early 80s in a subsistence farming community in Botswana. And the project developed in a farming area where, I mean, people were walking 15 miles for water on their heads, kids, women, and a borehole was dug that hit groundwater. And I think your comment when you compared in, subsistence farming community and, in Africa, you compared the energy that your machine costs to take water out of the air versus what this borehole, it ran on, I guess, some kind of oil or gas, I assume, but it was deep in the ground and it had to be generated. So are you saying that but still your machine is where it is, it's stationary, and people would still have to walk, if they're living on their little plot of land where they're, growing some food, I don't want to go into too depth, but the energy cost and the equipment involved in your machine compared to a borehole in a small rural subsistence farming community, your costs might be lower and the quality of the water might be better. And you still have the issue of it getting to where people, cook their food but am I getting the benefit of what you're doing?
I have a solution. I build machines that are smaller that could go to each one of those towns. This machine, as it sits right here, you could put it on a chassis. I go to one village. I like doing this. I go to a village. They need water. I save that village. I run the machine. I fill that village up with water. Turn it off. I drive the truck off. I go to the next village. And that's how you do it. This is mobile. I can drive it around while it's making water and give people water. It can sit still, plug it into your solar panels, take water. The next day, go 50 miles, give it to another village. Put 10 of them in different locations where people only have to walk a mile to go get the water. Put it right in the village where they just have to walk a few feet, a few hundred feet to get the water. That's how we did it in Puerto Rico. That's how we did it in Flint. In Flint, people had, and Puerto Rico, people walked to the machine. They would get a gallon when they needed it. They would walk home.
Right. That's what it would be. Okay, thank you. I will look into your website, and I still know people there, so
okay.
Put you in touch.
Thank you. We have one more question from Karen Pope. Karen, can you unmute and ask? And then we're getting close to the top of the hour. We wanna I know, let's see, Dee, did you, yes, Dee put your info in the chat so we can find you. Let's see.
Okay.
Karen, are you?
This is quite amazing, and I congratulate you. I wonder if you patented your machine.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, definitely.
And do people need continued support to maintain the machine? Or do you hire people to be there with the machine?
You know the company Train Technologies? Train?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working with Train right now, so that if you have one of these machines, just call they're global. They're everywhere in the world. All you have to do is call a Train technician. They'll come over and fix the machine. I have a meeting with Culligan next week because there's a filter system in here. If I had a laterite cloud, I should have put it lower, but I didn't have time. But Culligan wants to do the water filtration system, and that's what I need to scale. So if anything goes wrong with it, call Culligan for your filter, call Train for compression. Done. You're safe anywhere in the world now.
Thanks for answering.
I don't have to go there anymore.
Appreciate it.
I think she had a third part to her question. Are the Puerto Rico and Flint and Jackson still using?
Are they still using them?
The city council in Jackson, there's somebody sitting on the city council that sells bottled water. So they're kind of they don't really want me there because I'm cutting into their profit line.
So and we need to pick up our phones, our people that we know there, and advocate. Okay, go ahead.
And also to do this, I don't do this. I do that through the Moses West Foundation. I move equipment. Like this machine is sitting here, but it needs a home. It needs somewhere to go. It needs someone to help. But to get this machine there, it takes funds to do it. If there's a mission for this machine and people donate to it, and even the paint job on this foundation machine, this was all done with donation. Small donations, large donations, but that's what keeps this going. Without the Moses West Foundation and generous donations from people like yourselves, I would have been finished a long time ago, other than what I do on the small systems that I do for specific customers within the United States. But the big systems like this is 100% the foundation, and donations.
Well, we're so glad you're able to join us and talk to us about it. We've got like 3 minutes left, so I'm going to give you the last word. Just tell us what you want us to know. Just take us home.
I'll tell you, it's been a lifelong journey to get this done. I'm finally seeing the success of it. My whole mission when I started was just to save a life, just to save people's lives, and I'm there, and I've done it. It's happening. This is not a type of space age kind of equipment. This is here. It's now, and it's never been needed like this ever before. We've got a world right now where the water that's evaporating, going into the atmosphere, is coming back at us like punches from a professional prize fighter. That's what the atmosphere is doing to us right now. So right now with this technology, what I would love to do is continue to do this work, and I do this work and advance this technology with your generous donations. And I would appreciate that. And spread the word, share, post, repost, let people know that this technology does exist. And there's no such thing as a drought. There's no such thing as really water scarcity when you have this technology. Technology advances the humankind. We always say that, well, we can't do this or we can't do that. I've just shown you today a system that can supply an entire city, small town, community with water. All that has to do is scale. So please share, follow, donate to the foundation, and that's it.
Thank you.
We'll get this done.
Thank you so much, Moses. Thank you.
You're very
Woo.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll run it one more time before I leave.
Okay.
I like.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yes, there it is.
I just want to run and catch it. Wait, you're wasting it. But no, he's not.
No. There's not wasting it because it's not wasted. Everybody that works here, that come Monday, they bring their 5-gallon jugs or 1-gallon jugs or 2-gallon jugs or 100-gallon jugs. That water disappears fast. People use it for planting for their food at home, their crops, drinking, making, distilling alcohol because the water's so clean and pure.
Thank you.
Where are you based? Really quickly, someone wanted to know where you're based.
Where are you based?
I'm based out of Chicago.
Oh, it's not far.
Not
Right.
far.
I'm based out
Plenty of
Chicago.
humidity. No lack of humidity.
Yeah, this year we didn't get much snow either, but it's I live right next to the lake, so yeah, it's the lake keeps it cold and the summer keeps it humid.
Which neighborhood?
You know Highland Park?
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Way
Yes.
way up there.
Here.
Yes, Tamara is
Thank you.
here.